Good afternoon, Greg.
Good morning.
This is going to be the sixth, I think, of our fun dialogues, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't believe it's 6. Okay.
So we didn't know up until the last minute of what we were going to talk about. And I was telling you that in my class, in focusing oriented relational therapy, one of the participants was protesting about how we say in focusing groups that we can say anything and that it's safe, and that that isn't true because there's a culture in the focusing world of being sweet, being nice, being optimistic, and that in subtle ways you can be shunned if you're not sweet and nice and optimistic, and you can't even confront the being shunned because it's in subtle ways. So I thought that might be an interesting thing for us to talk about, and that seems to be sort of an edge for you also.
Absolutely. I think your student is really touching on something that I would recognize. That there is a kind of a culture probably around therapy in general, but certainly in the focusing world, where there is an expectation that everyone, I think in the focusing world, it can get to the point where everyone's expected to agree, listen, and not even really challenge too much. So that even setting up a debate between two focusing oriented therapists who might emphasize different things, it's difficult to do. And I think we need to bring back some of the grittiness and test ourselves to see how well can we really listen to someone whose perspective or idea of action might be radically different than what we're feeling. Then how well?
Yes. I love that term, the grittiness.
Yeah.
Of it.
Yeah.
What I said in the class that comes to me now is that what gives relational freedom and what makes for what I would call the big focusing attitude is making room for more and more edges of the group, of the culture, so that challenging and testing and being on the edge, and of course the edge is so important in focusing, right? The edge of what people can be comfortable with, that going right to the edge of your comfort zone, but not going over the edge. Or sometimes people go over the edge, right? And then the group has to sort of bring it back in and contain it. But it's that those perturbations of the system that give a kind of life to it and flexibility to it. And your word grittiness is really nice in there.
As you're saying that, I'm just noticing the feeling in myself and thinking, how can things be welcomed without somehow being mollified or made less potent? Even the act of welcoming can be a subtle kind of disempowering of something intense. And maybe that's part of what welcoming is supposed to do. I don't know. But I'm also thinking of, maybe not quite the same as your example, I'm also thinking of being in a group of focusing oriented therapists, for example, or focusers, and not acting out in a way that you're simply expressing emotion and venting it, but actually practicing focusing and getting in touch with a felt sense and speaking forcefully and truthfully from that. It has the ring of truth to it, I think, when that happens. But it can also be destabilizing of the whole system of the group or the traditions of what has happened up until then. And I'm not sure how well we handle that, how well we can welcome the speaking from a real felt sense of what's happening, even when it's kind of pulling the rug out from under us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking that my groups love Jean's paper, fitting in, pouring out, and relating. And then there comes this culture where pouring out is bad and fitting in is bad, right? But yet, being real is fitting in, pouring out, and relating, right? And what I hope is that when someone is triggered, that they can pour out, and that the group can contain that, and that the way that something is received makes it. It shapes it. It's there's a quote about the meaning of a communication is in the response it elicits. It's Eric Erickson, and I think that's relevant here. That if someone gets triggered and is going on and ranting in a group, of course you want to be able to calm them down or something there to make room for everybody. But it's how it's received that will make it focusing or not focusing, not that everybody in the group is going to always be relating, or else that becomes that constricted culture, right?
I'm thinking of a different paper that Gendlin wrote. I don't think it was ever published, but it's on what kind of an organization fits with focusing.
Oh, that's interesting. I'd love that if you would send that to me.
I have that somewhere. I could send it to you. And in it, he makes the point that throughout history, there have been all of these attempts, progressive attempts, usually, to improve the way things are done, like revolutions and big social movements. And he says that in the end, typically all of these attempts fail because the way of doing it was the same. Something in our way of doing things, or even our attempts to make positive change, there's something in the way we do it that defeats it in the end.
Yes.
I'm curious about that. I think that's something in the focusing world that we could look much more closely at. What kind of a process would achieve the kind of world we would like to live in?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what we're working on in our community empowerment leadership group. We're trying to live that out and see. And it's a messy business.